everybody. Welcome to Creative Blog. We're your hosts, V.
And Sean, aka Lord Spew. We talk shop with other creatives in the animation and the comics about things like finding your artistic path and the process of making art while we doodle on magma.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. If you haven't yet, check out our Patreon in the description of this episode and subscribe to our channel.
Today we have with us Mike Manor.
What's up, y'all? Thank you for having me.
I knew that's how your name was pronounced.
I've never heard someone say my name actually more perfectly, which is striking.
Thanks.
You're our first pixel artist guest, and you also have recently released some smalls with Adult Swim. I'll just kind of start by asking you a very kind of broad question, but have you always been interested in making animation?
Not necessarily. I was kind of stumbling around it for a while. I kind of have my roots in early YouTube stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of machinima before.
Yeah.
Sort of making skits with video game engines, basically. So I was big on that. And then I slowly over time worked my way to actually animating properly. Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of pixel artists either go into video games or, fewer of them go into animation for sure. Did you ever dabble in the video game area?
No, really weird. I felt like for a while I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do pixel art for everything but video games, because really the early days of me even deciding I wanted that to be the medium was just kind of scrolling around on Tumblr and seeing these really crazy GIFs that people were making.
Are you thinking Paul Robertson? Because I feel
one of the many. He's God, he's the greatest. Yeah, just amazing. He's one of the only other, him and Ivan Dixon both did a lot of, pixel art video stuff that was sort of an inspiration to know that this is possible, I guess. So it's kind of sort of broadly unexplored, making animation with pixel art in that way. It's kind of what Paul does, and then what I do. So yeah.
Well, what got you into pixel art? Did you do art before that, or was that your first time kind of playing around with it?
That was that was kind of my first time playing around with it. The sort of, I guess, story of it was I was in this gaming space for ages, and I was making video game parodies, like Fallout 4 shorts and things like that. And I started to get really angsty about that. I was I feel like parodies aren't real. This is not real animation. I want to make some real stuff.
Spicy take. Argue in the comments. Is our parodies real?
Are parodies
are
real?
Birds real?
Parodies are for sure real. I was just I've made a bunch of these, and I feel like many people who are on YouTube are kind of in this space where they want to be taken seriously as an artist, but it feels like the industry is no, YouTubers are YouTubers and industry is industry. And this is, in 2015.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because when you say YouTubers versus industry, are you thinking kind of internet people versus Hollywood? Or is that kind of how, or is it just or is the industry even broader in because sometimes I wonder, when people say these, say industry, do they also mean music video, or do they just mean specifically?
I think it just has felt at times, maybe it's even with sketch comedy as well, that there's this sort of insurmountable gap to be covered from transitioning to YouTube into the mainstream, even though now it probably seems kind of, these things are more synonymous. Really, YouTubers are more famous than famous people in a lot of cases. But for a while, I think there's a lot of people who Joji, crossing over from YouTube into being this incredible musician. There's so many YouTubers who kind of dream of wow, I want to be received by audiences outside of YouTube, and get to do certain things that it feels like other creative people get to bridge into.
Does that mean getting an article in the
Sure.
times or something.
Yeah,
That would be what
yeah.
the industry is. Hmm.
At least, these are my feelings, and I'm like projecting maybe a bit onto you know, other folks, I
No,
guess.
it makes
But it
sense.
just was, yeah, sort of my
I
observations.
I feel like there's a lot of things that are required of internet animators to either stay quote unquote relevant or to appeal to a very broad audience with parody and all that stuff, because those are the things that get the most views, I think, usually, unless you carve out this extra little area for yourself. But I feel like those aren't always compatible with the transition into like the quote unquote industry, like, you know, you doing parody stuff and then trying out to write sketch comedy on something, or trying to go work on a show, or I mean there's probably going to be people that review like a portfolio that are like all this parody stuff, like, I don't like it, like, where's your original whatever.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I could see that.
Yeah.
I like to talk about like this theme, this conversation, just because I do feel like this is something that I see sometimes in online conversation. So I think it's a very relevant conversation, and it's going to be really exciting to hear kind of what you did next when you had once you had that thought.
Yeah, within that, as I was kind of sweating it out in YouTube doing these like parodies, feeling a kind of way about it. They're doing, decently well, but I think for a while, because I had my roots in working with machinima, it somewhat felt like I needed to like exit this gaming space. But I love like music, and so I had written this this, I guess you could say, album long music video concept around Flying Lotus's album Los Angeles. I don't know if you've ever heard this album.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah, it's like an early Flying Lotus.
So,
I think it's
so
his first album.
you wrote an album that references another album?
I wrote an animated piece that you would watch with
Oh,
the album.
damn. Okay.
Is this sort of like, I don't know, I just had like conceptualized this, and mind you, up to this point in my career, I've never like, I have no proper training. I was just sort of just like following my whims,
Hmm.
basically. And so while I was making these like Fallout parody shorts, I was working with an animator who I hired off of Craigslist. And we
Hell
were
yeah.
kind of, I was like showing him these pixel GIFs, and I was like, can we make something like this? I'll like voice act in it. And so I got him, and I was like, dude, we're not making Fallout parodies anymore. We're making experimental album, music video crazy shit now. And he was like, hell yeah, dude, I'm so down for that. I love Flying Lotus. Let's let it rip. And
Oh
yeah, so
yeah.
we created like some pieces of concept art, and I like tweeted one out, and I just like tagged, Flylo in it. And then he like followed me and DM'd me and was like,
Whoa.
hey, I think like I could use you in the movie I'm making right now. And I was like,
What?
Whoa.
yeah, this is like so crazy because it's such like an overkill. You like at someone and then you're just like, I was like a barista like on my break, and I like ran out to the alleyway, on my 10 to like have a phone call. And
Wow.
yeah, so I'm like chatting with him on the phone, and he's like asking me a little bit about the art, and this is like this is barely developed at all. So I'm just like talking to him about this thing. He's like, yeah, I got this really crazy horror movie I'm working on. I have some pixel art scenes I think I want to make. And he's like, do you think you could do that? And I was like, absolutely. And he was like, cool, I'll like hit you up in October and we'll do it. Um, and so I like, whatever, hung up. I like hit up that artist, and I was like, dude, I just had a phone call with Flying Lotus. Like, I told him about the concert, thought it was cool. He told about the movie, he thought that was cool. And then he's like, the artist was like,
What?
dude, I have actually really bad news. I just got a corporate gig. I cannot work with you anymore.
No.
Um,
This is like a
yeah,
movie. You get the
What?
high and then the
It's
low.
just like the
no,
record
truly.
scratch moment where it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
what? I can't work with you anymore.
No, like truly. And then it's like, I feel like next is like anime, like training montage part, because I was like, I would rather like fail spectacularly in like 3 months time, which is what I had to learn, than just say no to this opportunity and come clean. So I just like started to build my aesthetic, and it's kind of like the bridge of everything because all the stuff I do, if you're like looking at pixel art, it's like low resolution pixel art, you could say.
Hmm.
This was just developed because I needed like a fast way to animate really quickly. Like I needed to just like, with pixel art you can draw in full color. There's like some like really weird workflow advantages to it that can make it really fast to animate.
Hmm.
So yeah, I like started developing this style, and then he hit me up in October, and we did work on the movie together, and I did get a scene in the movie with my like really, really not so great compositions. But
Oh my god. But
yeah,
you like,
That is
I
so
think that
cool.
the defining thing about this and the thing that separates you from someone else is like repeatedly you like went on a limb and took a risk. You like out of the blue DM'd or tagged this person. They hit you up. Your friend was like, I can't do it. And instead of like collapsing and saying like, never mind, I can't do it, like you learned how to do it yourself. Like but just to take us through the stuff that you had to learn to get to the level of being able to take the place of this other artist with you. What were the responsibilities that you and this artist had been like divvying out? Like what did you have to
sure,
take
yeah.
onto your plate and learn?
I mean, so what I was doing before, I was just writing and voicing. I like financed this through basically being a manager of a coffee shop, and this guy just being really burnt out and wanting to work on something creative. So he was like, I
Mhm.
really don't care. I just want to make something that I want to make that's fun, instead of like motion graphics corporate stuff. And so, yeah, I had to learn, basically everything with it. I started on Photoshop, which is I think a pretty common tool for pixel art. But I found that like Photoshop is so feature rich that it just has too many things that I won't ever use with my
Sure.
workflow. And
Mhm.
I was trying to animate within Photoshop, which was, it was
Nightmare.
a sweaty endeavor. And so then I saw Sprite, which is the program I'm still
Yeah.
using, and just like a tremendous shout out to Sprite. It's like the greatest $20 I ever spent, and it is truly just such a well made program. It's incredibly intuitive, and so yeah, I was able to like develop this workflow through that. And then in tandem, I use After Effects to composite. So I was kind of learning both of these things. I was like trying to learn like these pixel art walk cycles. I was getting really like frustrated with like the rate in which I was like, oh, I could just make some like really choppy shit in Sprite, and then I can use like motion stuff in After Effects to sort of speed it up. So much was just like so much of the style is built so just like I could do it alone, because I have
Hmm.
no one else to work with on it basically. So yeah,
That's
that's kind of
amazing. It's interesting too that you started with writing because I didn't realize that when you were working with the animator, you were just doing voices and writing. So it's cool to think that you were like a writer first, pretty much, and then you were like, okay, I need to like do some art. Which also, this is a complete tangent, and I'm bashing for absolutely no reason, but goes to show that the AI art bros could just use 3 months and then, get really good at doing art, just like you did. So there's no reason
yeah.
for for
I know. You gotta ask, like, do you like the art from what you see, or do you actually like making things? You have to kind
hmm
of love making things, I think. Yeah, the AI stuff is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was really bad for a while. I'm probably a little too hard on myself, I guess. But if you like go back in my Instagram history, I mean, I basically keep everything I've ever made there, so you can sort of go back and see, how unpolished stuff looked up to what I've made now. And that's just like the journey over the what is this, like 2015, 2016. I was starting to figure it out. So yeah, it's wow. It's been like 8 years, 9 years of yeah, figuring this workflow out and slowly, getting better with it, I guess. It's a weird
Well,
thing to get better at because the pixel art is such a niche, you know, it kind of
yeah.
hinders as much as it helps, I would say, in terms of kind of getting to
Oh
where you want
yeah.
to go. Yeah.
In what way do you feel like it hinders? And what way does it help, I guess?
It helps because there's like just like very few of us who use it, so you're visually very recognizable online. But it hinders because it sort of requires the like the imagination of like at the time, especially like executives or of other people to want to pick it up because it hasn't been tried too
Mhm.
often.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and also the skill set is so unique that I can't just like jump on and storyboard or I can't like apply it elsewhere. You know, maybe some stuff with compositing, you know, I can be helpful with, but in a sense, I'm kind of like basically learning the whole half of like making a video game, but I'm not using it for making a video game. So it
Yeah.
becomes this kind of yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
strange
so it's,
flow.
well, that's really interesting that like that yeah, that the way that you came to it because it's like it is a very unique way of going into movie making. I'm gonna say movie because animation is like pretty much movies, but no, that's really cool. And I like that you said that you've been like refining your process for 10 years now, pretty much. And do you kind of like, is that all you do now? Do you feel like you can just kind of live strictly from making animation?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I think this year probably more so than any other year. It's been like a very good year for my career, but I've found as you sort of continue to climb through development, you know, the way that money works is sort of chaotic and
Yeah.
Hmm.
you get things in lumps and you can't really always plan a
Yeah.
life around that.
Yes.
So, yeah, kind of one to work out.
Just to explain for the audience, basically, sometimes development can take a long time, or a step of development can take a long time, and they might be like, "Hey, you have $15,000 to make this story Bible," and you're like, "Oh, that dang! I've never gotten paid to do a story Bible. That's awesome!" And then, 8 months go by of you like
Yes.
getting notes, like you'll send it off and they won't get back to you for 2 months. And then you're like, that money goes by and you're like, okay, so I can't work full time on this. I have to be working part time on this plus another thing in order for it to make sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, which is, you know, it's a crazy feature of this
Yeah.
space. And you know, I was like, especially like checking out like your website and everything, and I was like, you got the multiple things going. I I got to get the multiple things going. You got the streaming, you got the merch, you know, you got the like, and I was like, this is what you do. Like you have to you know, like wear many hats and like jump in where you can. But it's nice that you have it sort of centered around more like all of this like kind of enhances your own career as well, which I think is great. It's like your own orbit of revenue.
Well, so
mhm.
when did this thing happen with Flying Lotus? How long ago was this?
This was in 2016.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Wow.
so before that, you were like mainly writing and doing voices. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as your artistic journey and building your brand and your look and all that stuff goes, you are pretty early in. That being said, I think
Hmm.
that the way that you handle colors and composition in your current shorts, like you would not be able to tell. And I think that you're doing a great job, and it's all that stuff is going to come with time. Now, like as somebody who had to throw your style together so quick, I'd love to talk about your thought process of like speed running, like how your art style looks, like what things were you pulling from, what games are you a fan of the look of, like what goes into making your style, so I mean, you made it pretty quick, I think, all things considered.
Yeah, it was so yeah, there's wow, yeah, there's so much in there. I feel like within the style, I was, yeah, very specifically on like Tumblr. I found a ton of these Japanese pixel artists who do like
Ah,
low
okay.
resolution stuff. yeah, they're making these really pretty GIFs. That was kind of the fun, like the foundational block of like, okay, like this GIF is like 5 seconds. Is it possible to make it any bigger? And then for games, I was like really in love with like Sword and Sorcery is like this kind of
Yeah.
indie
Hmm.
title that
Oh
is
yeah.
super low res, has really pretty art, and then yet like weirdly like Tiny Tower, which is this like shitty phone game. It was not shitty, it's a fine game. But yeah, just like the character design is really cute, like very colorful. Also, just want to say like thank you so much for just like complimenting the colors and the composition. That means like a lot. I'm definitely by no means professionally trained at all, so it just is like really, yeah, really nice to hear that. Yeah,
you
and
you put
so
out so much work that I think that no one would be able to tell. Like you put out more
Yeah.
work than a lot of animators that have been doing this for 10 years. So
It's
you
crazy
caught
because
up.
yeah, it feels like you're like one of these artists that when I looked at your website, I was like, oh, you must have worked for like ad agencies or like, like a professional freelancer, kind of, and
not at
it's
all.
like, it's
Absolutely
really,
not.
it's really cool. I
Yeah.
think that's always really inspiring to hear that like, like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say it sounds like this may sound like snooty up front, but I guess it's like taste is like really great, and not like taste as in like we all know what good images look at, but what's amazing, especially with pixel art and like all images, is it's really all in there if you like study and you look at your shit and you look at their shit and you look at their
Yep.
shit and you use a fucking eyedrop tool to see why they put these two colors together. Or like for me, yeah, I feel like I was just studying other people's images, and then I really broke like the process of teaching myself down into like, especially if you look at the early clips, like really, really like I have no backgrounds in some of it. It's like I'm gonna do character animation first, and I'll say this, this at least helped me for learning in like a really big way, is that with everything, I didn't want to learn everything at once. I just wanted to learn one thing at a time, and I would take each thing I was learning and I would try to find a way for it to like apply to my life or like sort of brand in a way that made me excited. So like with my like early like internet following with the pixel art stuff, I was like huge into music, huge into rap. And with this like pixel art stuff, I was like, man, I should just like animate 30-second clips of these rappers doing their verses that I really love. And I will basically try to learn a new element of animation that I'm interested in, or like try a new technique and then apply it to this 30 seconds of that I want to animate. And then I'm just going to put it on Twitter. I'm going to tag the artist. And that way it's like your practice becomes like productive and like functional to you. And honestly, too, like I think some people are maybe worried about being good or bad or being really precious about their sort of rough draft phases. You'll be surprised how people will like glob on to your stuff if they just think it's dope. And the other
yeah.
great function of that too was I thought I really wanted to come up doing music videos as well. So I was like, this is how I interface with people. I was able to meet like many artists that I kind of admire through giving away these like free things that I could have developed in a vacuum, but instead decided to kind of give out just to build some kind of foundation for myself, because it just kept being like, how do I get people to like pay attention and
Yeah.
train at the same time?
What's been your experience generally releasing like these clips? Do you feel like the artists are usually excited that someone animated to their track, or do you feel have you ever gotten someone that was like, "Oh, like I don't want you to use my, music or whatever."
Honestly, people are like so psyched to get something for free. It
Nice.
is
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true.
such an incredibly flattering thing. Even if you make something that kind of sucks, like the sentiment of it is so incredibly sweet. And artists will just look at this and be like, can I even believe something I made could generate like someone else to like feel so, you know,
Yes.
attached to it, they would want to make something riffing off of it. And so, yeah, that was kind of a way that I started to like level up the practice. And it also becomes, internet feedback loop. It becomes kind of addictive when you have one thing that starts to take off on Twitter. It's sort of, if you can like combine your practice into like also something that is simultaneously reaching for your goals, the practice starts to become kind of a little more addictive.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then eventually you'll be ready for your, big opportunity. I feel like so much, of my time was spent like, how do I like break in? Like, how do I pitch something? How do I get these people to care about me? And there's so many, like, it was such a murky landscape for me that I just, you just have to kind of keep going. Yeah, and it'll reveal itself. Like, I can't state enough how like
Yeah.
absolutely like little insight I had on getting anything made when I started. I just knew about
For
YouTube.
yeah, for your and so you had that conversation with Philo, and then you were like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and you had to learn. And did you, how many hours would you say that you spent on honing in your craft? And I'm asking because I'm wondering, were you still doing your barista job, or were you just like, I'm gonna take a break so I can really focus on this?
Oh, yeah, I was like, I mean, to give you like a, yeah, a vision of that time in my life, I was basically working. Yeah, I still like maintain my manager job. It's kind of a benefit of coffee is having really early hours, because you get your afternoons.
Oh,
So
that's right. Yeah.
I would, you know, do those shifts, and then in the afternoon and into the evening, I would try to work on one of these little experiments that I would, send off to a musician or something like that. And really, like, I think it was a time where I was doing a ton of work, but it's actually, to me, in memory, one of like the happiest times I've had making art. I think there was something so great about working in coffee with your hands and working with like a staff of people that you like love, and then
Hmm.
you run away and you do this more like computery, brain oriented activity. And those balances, they really felt like they refreshed each other. And so yeah, it was like a grind and it was like a hustle, but it was, yeah, pretty great, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh,
How much were you drawing on that experience for Beantown, your Adult Swim
oh
animated
yeah.
cartoon? Because it's characters working. It's at a cafe, right?
Yeah,
Or like a
it is
diner.
like quite literally and entirely based only on my experience working in
Yeah, no,
coffee.
that's good. I'm glad that we're talking about that. We're talking about that working class shit. We're talking about that diner shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that time of my life. It is so great. At literally, the cafe is a one-to-one representation of the cafe I managed. You
yeah. Oh,
can
that's dope.
go to Pavement in Boston, like 41 Gainsborough Street, and you will set foot into an identical cafe that the show is made off of. It is, the people are based on my real friends. And obviously, that's a little bit hectic, but I think the foundation of it was, there was a lot of food stuff that we did there. So you would be like sitting on the line making sandwiches for like 8 hours a day with like maybe your best friend, just like riffing and just talking shit all day long, listening to music, dealing with these like really crazy customers. And we would just kind of dream about like these really abstract scenarios of like who we would be like serving, or someone coming back with a story for a rush. And I was really thinking at that time, like what would a show, centered around a coffee shop really look like? Not necessarily like, I feel like the Bear, say, which is kind of
Mm.
service
Yeah.
industry oriented. The Bear is like, you hear people, they watch it, they're like, oh my God, it's triggering me from the rushes I was in, which is, true and very accurate. But I would say where it sort of deviates, I think for most people, is that the Bear kind of turns into this sort of highbrow reach to like these Michelin stars, where in reality, like most of the people passing through are not the executive chefs. They are the people who are day in, day out working in these places,
Yeah.
trying to figure their lives out. Kind of, maybe they're flirting with the idea that they would love to stay in coffee and find a way to do that. Or maybe they are like in this sort of purgatory state where they're kind of like, I really want to go and do other things. But there's like, I think a function of service industry stuff where it feels almost like simultaneously, it's like Dark Souls in that it's very hard and painful, but it's also like Dark Souls when you get to like rest from adult life for a little while. You just get to like, you just get to like for me, you get to roll up and make bagels for 6 hours and none of it follows you home. You just clock out, at least until you're managing, which, I did do eventually, and then it follows you everywhere. But yeah,
That's really funny that you bring that up because I do feel like, yeah, like I like The Bear. I watched season one, but I feel like you said, it's kind of missing a little bit of like, oh, what is it like really like if people didn't really care as much about like the establishment, they're just like, yeah, it's a job, and I care about like
Yeah.
just, and I think that's really cool. It's funny because I do feel like there is a, I do feel like these stories are kind of missing right now in entertainment. I feel like the other small was maybe Gassie's Gas and stuff, where it's like a gas
Yeah.
station, but like
oh,
it's not
so
very
good.
common yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Sarah Schmidt, episode number 182. Check it out if once you're done with this episode. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, there's not a ton of stories about service industry jobs for some reason. And that's really cool that you actually do have that experience. Is this something that you want to keep kind of like working, like pitching, or like do you have more ideas around that realm of things?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Beantown kind of emerged out of, I wrote like a live action, like our coffee shop pilot concept that's kind of like a real love letter to Boston in your mid 20s. And then honestly, when I was pitching to Dave, I sent him a bunch of ideas, and he was kind of like, "Oh, I kind of like this coffee one, but I would, it'd be cool if it was kind of like the stuff you did for a studio." And I was like, "Oh, so like, like meme heavy, more, for, you know,
Mhm.
just to get some clicks in there, So yeah,
Yeah.
I just like thought about it, and I was like, "Oh, I should do that. I should just combine these ideas together." And that was kind of the genesis for that. But there's so much like to say about that time. I feel like I got to see it from so many positions, from being like never working in the service industry to like hiring and firing people, and you know,
Oh, what is that like having to like,
crazy. It's so
yeah,
crazy. Well,
how would
there's
you
so much.
compare the experience of hiring someone for the coffee shop versus hiring someone from Craigslist for your YouTube videos?
Oh my gosh, hiring someone for the coffee shop, that was so fun. You would what I would basically say for any hiring advice for anyone is when you're hiring someone in a coffee shop, you do want to, you're thinking about all your coworkers. You're like, who's going to fit in here well? Who is going to like add
Oh,
to the pool, but
yeah.
also who wants this job and who needs this job and who kind of like deserves this job? Like there's people who are like,
Hmm.
I'm taking a year off from school. I need to like crunch. And I'm like, yeah, that person's going to work. They're going to like want hours. They're going to jump in here. But then also, you you're basically going on like an eternal road trip with whoever you hire.
Mm.
So you really want to make sure you can suss out that, like that personality to be a good fit, and, to like balance, against other people.
Yeah.
My Craigslist hiring criteria was like, "Oh, you're down? Hell yeah, let's do it." That was
Yeah, it's
that was
just
very
down
different
question
times.
mark. Yes,
Yeah,
no, check which one.
That's
Yeah.
are you
so
down?
funny. Yeah,
But
I didn't think
yeah,
about the personality thing. That's a really interesting angle because I feel like in animation, when I don't know, and Sean, you might correct me on this, but I feel like, I mean, I've never interviewed anyone to hire someone, but I've,
You should have
oh yeah,
for
I
the
have
for
actually.
for
We
this podcast.
For this podcast, our producer, Marco, we did interview you. I'm
shout out to
crazy.
Marco.
Marco! But I feel like what for animation that when I interview, I'm always just kind of like trying to be like, this is how I do the work, but I don't try to think about my personality. It's really interesting. And I don't know if that's how they hire. I don't know if they hire a team based on personality.
Yeah, I think
Dude,
like the face-to-face component of working in the service industry with someone is like you are going to be in extremely stressful situations with this person. And if I can like
Oh yeah.
suss out that you can handle, that was like I think one of my interview questions was like, how does like stress manifest for you like in a real way? Like for me, I would shut down. I would just like shut down and have to go walk to the dish
Oh
pit
yeah.
and just do some dishes sometimes, and then I could
Mhm.
like reemerge. But like I'm
Mm.
kind of like a if I get anxious, it becomes like a comedy of errors, you know? Like I'm just gonna like, slap the bagel knife and
Yeah.
then it's gonna like fly into someone's eye and then I'm in a trip and then the whole fridge is gonna get unplugged and then yeah, the grinder's gonna break and fall on my head and
You know
so
what's
yeah.
so funny? I just watched the pilot for Gilmore Girls, and that's
Mm.
literally how the chef is like in the inn. Like she does exactly what you just described. It's so funny.
It's so real because sometimes you have to like if you know you're that way, you're like, I actually need to be like really quiet for like 20 seconds and breathe and then return. Because if I just keep working, I'm going to keep causing so many more problems. But depending
Ooh,
on if if you have the availability to step out, it's obviously, sometimes you have to batten down the hatches.
I
That's
like these interview questions though.
yeah.
Do you want to do like a quick like we're auditioning for your bagel shop?
Oh my
Do
Oh my
God. Yeah.
goodness.
yeah. V, how does your stress manifest?
Oh my God. I could really I'm trying to remember the three questions. I would usually know if I'm gonna hire someone, mostly when I like walked in, because you check the schedule, you check like what their sort of objective life is like that they've filled out. And to me, I loved hiring non-students or people who are taking breaks. And yeah, I remember I would ask also, oh, what was the question? I would say like, tell me about a time when you needed to complete something but didn't have the resources to do it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't have the resources to do it and to complete something. Oh, wow.
That's
And
cool.
they don't prepare for it. That's so interesting because I'm trying to think of
Yeah, it definitely make people be like, oh shit, yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think about that. I guess. Oh, that's actually a good segue. I guess I don't want to talk shit, but let's say
We're already going there. Hell yeah. Okay.
I know I talk shit, but you both know what I'm talking about. An experience that the three of us shared. And I don't think we had the resources, and the way that I handled it was I kind of dipped a little too deep into my personal resources, if that makes sense. I'm kind of the school
Yeah.
Sure.
teacher that will go buy the pen at the grocery at the store for the students
Yeah.
if the school doesn't provide. I would say that's what I do, which is
That makes
good
sense.
because the work gets done, but then it's bad because then you can build a little bit of resentment
Yeah.
there.
I think it depends on
Yeah,
how emotionally connected I am to it. Like
sure.
I think my first go to is a lot of communication. Like, hey, listen, we don't have enough to do this, or I don't have enough time to do this. I'm just letting you know I may have to hand in something that is
Yeah.
not quite as polished, but I'm going to try to hand in something anyway. Or, hey, do we have wiggle room to extend the deadline or whatever it is? And in
Mm-hmm.
this case, for the smalls, what V's talking about,
No, I
I
didn't know that's not what I was talking about.
yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff that the three of us have done together. I I did ask for an extension for the deadline like 3 times. I was like, these are my shorts are long.
Mm,
They're taking a long time. There's not enough money. Like the one thing that I might be able to change is how long I have to do them, and so I
mm.
did ask for more time. What I should have done was made them shorter, and
Yeah.
that or make them shittier or whatever it is. But
Nah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I hear you.
so now, Mike, I want you to answer that question too, but I also want to hear what you as a manager thought of both of these answers.
Sure. I think, okay, let's see. Perhaps I'll tell a service industry a service industry story.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so where I was basically the very first week I was a manager, I got handed off the store. I was training under this other guy, and he gave me this like labor formula basically to figure out, all right, like, are we staffed enough? And so I did this formula after he had quit, and I was like, holy shit, we need like 5 more people. We only have time to maybe hire one person.
Mm.
So I like hired this guy who was sort of based off the main character of Beantown. And I remember I like sat down with him in the interview. He seemed like down, like ready to go. And I was like, I got to be completely transparent with you. I need you to be like on the floor. Like you are not going to receive the training that you should have to be in this space. But if you ask
Mm.
questions, like we are here to help. Like I just like let him know like this is going to be janky. These 3 days are going to be brutal, but like I will hire more people. I just literally physically cannot. And so I got him in there. And during that first shift, it was Parents' Weekend in Boston, which is when all of the kids are moving into the city. The population quite literally
Mm.
doubles in the city. And this was like a college coffee shop. So
Oh, wow.
part of like the two some of like bagels are really big in the coffee shop, coffee is really big in the coffee shop, milk is really big, and so eggs were really big. We were running out of eggs. And so, this one like wonderful person who is working with me is like sweating out, is like, Mike, we're on our absolute like last, like we have barely any eggs left at all. We have like nothing. We're gonna run out within like 30 minutes. And so I was like doing like the mental math on this. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna buy eggs. I'm gonna run back as quickly as I can. And this the barista came up to me and said, "My, we are actually out of milk right now, actually. So, what are
Oh,
we gonna do?" And so, like, the lattes can't go out, the eggs
Is
can't
there a
go out.
pregnant? Is there a pregnant person in the lobby?
Literally.
Is there
oh
anyone
my
with milk in their body?
So I was seriously like, I was just like, wow. I was like ready. You're battle hardened at this point to handle one problem, but the two problems was like really throwing me. So I like ran over to a CVS and I literally
A
bought with my
CVS?
yeah, I bought
That's so
all the
funny.
milk I possibly could and all of the eggs I possibly could. I emptied them out and then I paid with my own credit card, which I did get reimbursed
Oh,
for, fortunately. And
Okay, that's good.
I just like found a shopping cart and I like pushed the shopping cart like 4 or 5 blocks, and yeah, brought it back. I would say like with that question, what I like about it, I guess, is that it can kind of like expose some realness, because the truth is like these situations don't always get handled perfectly, but I think it kind of like
mhm.
shows like a personality for someone who will go the mile for it, or will have tried, or will be transparent with how they have failed. I just feel like seeing honesty and hard
Yeah.
work and humanity in that is like more compelling than like, and then I stayed up really late and then I drank 3 coffees. It's like, yeah, like of course, but like how is your composure? Like it's like, yeah, more designed to just like, oh, okay, I guess I'll tell you about something I don't want to tell you about, but
I
like
went
you can
on a
trust
3-hour
trust me.
meth quest in the back alleyway where I had
Yeah.
to barter with the yeah, no, I
Yeah, no, literally.
It is hard sometimes to like answer the question about how do you handle stress,
yeah.
because I feel like for me, and I don't know if you guys feel that way too, but I feel like for me, before I was a quote unquote manager, before I was like an episode director, I mean, I would get stressed out because of the deadlines or whatever. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, when you're board artist, it's all on you, and you only have yourself to manage. So you can freak out all you want, but at the end of the day, you just have to do the work.
Hmm.
Whereas when you're an episode director and things are out of your control because you're
Yeah.
managing people, and sometimes somebody gets sick or somebody, like decides that they want to quit, or like all of these kind of like random things. And sometimes, and that was, I think that's like my biggest like Achilles heel is like, you managed everything, you turned in the work, you're on time, everything is great, and it's
Yeah.
Friday night and you're happy,
Yeah.
but
It's gonna
you
go south.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, like I literally got a Friday night and I loved my boss. He's amazing. I love him. But he was just like, actually, here's like, brah, a million notes. And you're just like, I can't get this done by Monday. This is like impossible. It's like,
Absolutely.
and I would like, yeah. And then, yeah, like the shutdown thing that you said earlier, I like felt bad because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. There's not enough time.
Yeah,
There's not
and
enough people.
sometimes there just truly is no solution. And there is just like
Yeah.
you work, you do your best, and sometimes you do your best and you fail all the same. But I think like Sean, what you were saying, like you said over, you were talking about like communicating. That's like the best thing I want to hear. I want to be like, here's some real shit. Here's some real shit. Like I can get that to you, but it's gonna take a little bit longer. And like I'm a person, and like you ended up keeping your episodes the way you wanted to, because in this industry as well, you are ultimately serving your portfolio, and the work does have to be good, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
And it
No,
is what it
I mean,
is.
and there's been times where I didn't do that and it backfired. There's like
Yeah.
there was a time when my sleep schedule got really thrown off and I got insomnia, and we had a deadline and I just did not finish by the deadline I thought I could, and I did not.
Yeah.
And then the director was like pacing behind me while I was trying to finish, and it just wasn't getting done, and I didn't work on that show for the second season, and it was probably because of that moment. And I ended up being like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pass out, I gotta go home. And I
Yeah.
did not communicate on that instance. And
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
communication is just really important, even though what you might be communicating is embarrassing. Like you might be so embarrassed that
Mm.
like you couldn't do it, they counted on you, and you just can't do it. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just
I
real
like
though.
these.
That's humans, you know? Whatever.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like what you learned doing like a service industry job translated into you becoming like a full-time free, I mean, I'm gonna say freelancer, but that means
Sure, yeah.
animator, writer, any like creator.
Yeah, definitely. I think like it helped in a lot of ways. For one, I think I had really low, even though I had had like sort of a varied career in art through YouTube, and I'd like worked on all these skits beforehand, I had like kind of low self-esteem about like my quality and like my ability to work, sort of to be trusted. And it felt like through the service industry, working these like lengthy shifts, like 8 hours of, making drinks, which may sound objectively really bad, when you go through it, you learn how to do it, and you learn that you can lock in, and you learn that you can,
Mhm.
you know, and it was also just great confidence to become really good at something, to be like good at, making a bunch of sandwiches, or to, pour a latte really well. And I also think that there's something that I think about it all the time about how like proximity to discomfort is, I think, kind of good for a creative practice, and some creative angst is like, nothing
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
being your break, was supposed to be an hour ago, and you're pissed as fuck, like because something out of your control has happened. And then when you finally get on that break, you're just like, damn, I'm really going to use my extra time to like the way I want, or to move my life in the direction I want it to move in, at least for me. So I felt like it gave me a work ethic that I really needed. Because I think before that, I was kind of like, I was like, when the inspiration hits, it hits. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
still,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I was good at stuff. I think I was pretty good at stuff, but I was too inconsistent to make it. And you really do have to do a lot of, in animation, you can step away from it as art, and then you look at it as like any other job. Also, yeah, things just start to make a little more sense, that you may get rewarded more for your consistency than even your skill in a
Yeah,
lot of
that's so
cases.
real.
Hmm.
What did you go to school for? Because you're talking about how you used to kind of rely on inspiration and then you went into the service industry. So it sounds like you had a little bit, you didn't go straight into service.
Yeah, so I guess like the sort of like trajectory resume. I went to college for communication, in at Curry College in Milton, Massachusetts, a very strange school. Yeah, got my communication degree. I did not really discernibly take anything too strong away from that education. Probably more from like the theater program that I was in terms of like developing a voice. And
Mm.
then I had a job for a year at a startup doing all their media, which was kind of crazy. I was like
Hmm.
22, and I was just like way over trusted by them. So I got fired from that job, which was
No
crazy.
way. Do you feel
Yeah,
like it was one of these things where they're like, "Oh, you're young and hip, so you get it," or
it was weird. That was actually, I got that job through Craigslist. I I remember I bonded with the CEO over the fact that we both did we both did improv at one time, and he was like, "You did improv?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You're like my kind of guy, you know?" And so I was like, "All right,
Oh yeah.
let's go." I did,
Yes,
yeah, the
ended with
four
him
days a
once.
week. But it was crazy because I can't shoot anything. Like I literally know nothing about cameras, but I know how to like edit pretty well because of just, like all the YouTube stuff I was doing.
Mm.
So I could like put it together. But I think ultimately what happened was someone rolled over one day and was like, "Why is this 22-year-old kid doing something that like a 40-year-old should be doing?" And it's like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's a really good point. And so, yeah, they let me go. Yeah, really, really, it was pretty traumatic actually. It was pretty crazy to lose your job like that. I just like moved
yeah.
to
Can you,
Boston.
yeah, talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like that's something that is relatable for a lot of animators right now.
Yeah, how do
Because
you,
Yeah.
anime.
what's it? How do you deal with bouncing back from losing? That
Mm-hmm.
was that your first time getting fired?
It was my very first time getting fired. And like make no mistake, I was also pretty negligent at my job. Let me just be clear about that. I
Mm-hmm.
was playing balloon monkey tower defense in the bathroom for like 30, 40 minutes a day. I don't know why I was doing. I was just angsty, I guess. I don't know. I was a mess. I yet to establish my work ethic, but we'll say that.
That's why you needed to make coffee. That's
Yeah,
pre-coffee.
to be real, I was absolutely threw that job out the window by being a total fool and not appreciating a job in the way that I should. Um,
But would you
but
have worked with Flylo if you
yeah,
hadn't been let
yeah.
go,
Thank God
right?
that didn't happen then. I would have absolutely been like, I would have folded for sure. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Bouncing back, that was crazy. That was actually a really hard time in my life because I had just went through like a really bad breakup right after I lost my job. So I was really picking up the pieces and like adult life was just like not looking like what I had imagined post college. And so really, really, I guess like as like things sort of string together, I was good at writing and good at doing these voice acting things. I was sort of working with a couple people trying to produce shorts, looking for jobs. I was writing, I was living in the city. They gave me like a pretty good severance. So I was in like this like denial state where they gave me like 5K and I
Huh.
don't know anything about like savings or anything. I mean, my rent was like it was like $500 or something. It was like really chill. You
Oh,
know,
nice. That's awesome, dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, living really
RIP
cheap,
500. Yeah.
living real cheap. And so I was kind of like going in the coffee shop that I would actually eventually work at, and I was just sort of trying to piece together projects. And then ultimately, I was like running out of money, and I was like, I'm gonna have to move home if I don't get a regular job. I'm being a total idiot. And so yeah, that was kind of the transition into that. But yeah, I think like
It's
I'll
it's
say
cool that
like
you were like writing so much. Sorry, I don't
yeah,
want to
no
cut you
worries.
off, but I just wanted to point out it's cool that you were like still being like super creative and like writing and meeting with people. Like you had a like a creative. It sounds like you had
Yeah.
like a creative little group that you kept motivated by.
Somewhat, yeah. It was yeah, I would say like if anything about like sort of picking yourself up, I guess it's very much like when I was moving into the service industry, I remember thinking that my life was going into like a really abstract place, but it would earnestly turn out to be the best thing I ever chose to do, and it wasn't in any way throwing away my career by deviating. In fact, like it is now the total genesis of a lot of the stuff I think about creatively, and that like living life ordinarily is where you gain inspiration rather than, kind of staying in like a really narrow lane if you have like the chance to do so, and that all
Mm.
experiences are just as valuable as like somebody being like, I'm gonna backpack across Europe, like all this shit you can never really do. Like most people can't ever really do. But you
Yeah.
could go work at like UPS or you could, drive Uber and you can gain a lot from that. And it's obviously just to, get by however you need to get by. But for me, I knew that I'm like an only child. I knew that I needed to not live at home. And I knew that like I liked this coffee shop. I liked being at the coffee shop to work. Maybe I'd like working at the coffee shop. And so that was kind of it.
I love that you were both using the coffee shop as a way to like get more like writing done, but also you were kind of like, job prospects too.
Sure, yeah.
What
It was like a
what
big
I'm
expense. I'm
joking. I'm
like going to
joking.
this coffee shop every day
Yeah.
and now I'm getting everything for free from it, you know? That's another good tip. If you're sweating it out, get a job where the perks are directly affecting one of your
Yeah,
costs. So that's also really
true,
helpful.
true.
That's
What
so
what
true.
what stopped you? Do you think from going into live action, kind of like improv or sketch stuff? Are there live action shorts of you floating out there secretly?
You know what's crazy? There is one. I did an internship with this company called Fat Awesome. And if you look up Fat Awesome Plymouth Rock, you will see a video of me at like 22 years old, yeah, doing some sketch comedy about going to visit Plymouth Rock and about how like incredibly underwhelming that experience is. So that's probably the only thing. But yeah, I think for live action it's crazy, but my experience in school doing live action, we had a very hodgepodge bad film program. And so for me, my experience was pretty negative in film where I was like, this is like a collaborative shit show. I don't think anything good can come out of this. I had never had a good experience. So it was really like, I'm gonna write and I'm gonna, keep making my like machinima videos and I am going to control what I can control. But I was always like desperate to collaborate too. I was like, one of these days I'm gonna work with other people. But it seemed kind of unattainable with like no resources or like an art school community for a while until, Craigslist. That was the first artist I ever collaborated with in a big way.
Mm-mm.
Are you still doing the Craigslist hustle?
No more Craigslist hustle, though I do love Craigslist.
No
I love This apartment I'm in is because of Craigslist. I still swear by it.
Is that how you got in? No, sorry, I was just dumb joke. I was like, is that how you got in touch with Adult Swim through Craigslist?
I will say that maybe some other inspiration for people who are, looking for their in. The way I got in touch with Adult Swim Smalls was I just DM'd Dave, and that was it.
Whoa, that's
Hell yeah.
actually so smart. I think, okay, it's not a soapbox moment, but I will say, I do think it is a little bit underutilized for people to look up like producer or executive producers or just like generally people who are in a non-artist position in a company. I don't know how you found out that Dave was kind of supervising that program. Dave is really cool, by the way. I
Yeah,
really like working with
I
him.
don't
But
remember how I
yeah.
figured it out either, actually. He might have followed me at some point, and then I started to do my due diligence, and then I think I had a friend. But I mean, to answer your question, it 100% pays to do that. Like,
Hmm.
if you like, for when I was even working in coffee and I wasn't able to animate, I would sort of substitute this by researching like who is in what position where, so
Oh
I
yeah.
could follow them and maybe potentially send them something. But like the cold DM or like the cold email, you would be surprised how far that goes. People think that people are getting hit up all the time, and they're really not a lot of
Yeah.
times, and they might have time for you in a way that would surprise
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you
Um,
think we knew
Yeah.
Mike before this? Cold TM.
Cold DM. No, but it is so true, and
yeah,
I mean, it works with artists. I mean, it's always so fun meeting new people, just like DMing and stuff. But I also feel it's especially true for producers because they're not really in the limelight, you know. So
for
I
sure.
feel like if
Yeah, I would say like, and even for like how I was moving up in music, it was the same thing. There would be like a musician I really want to work with, and I would be like, okay, who's on their label? Okay, who's this smaller artist? Let me follow them, and then they maybe follow you back. And this is like sort of like the ugly side of like moving your career forward is the sort of unglamorous, maybe social media games that can take place to get attention from someone. But I think it's kind of worth playing for when it hits because ultimately we just need eyes on us and
Mhm.
yeah, however you get
And
that, I
you're
respect.
not forcing anyone to follow you back. You're just giving them a follow. It's
Oh my
fine.
goodness, I'm a serial follow unfollower, and I'll admit it.
No way! You
I'll admit it here on the
unfollow!
podcast.
You admit it on the podcast. Just watch 2 years from
checking
now, Mike
checking
doesn't
my
Let
follow
phone
me
right
tell you,
now.
I'll follow
Checking my phone
someone.
right now.
I'll wait to see. No, no, no. Okay, okay. Let's
Checking
talk about the
Instagram right
following.
now.
Let's talk about the following. All right, I'm gonna break down my thoughts on following because I have strong thoughts on following.
Oh,
All
hell
right,
yeah. I love this.
I don't. if you follow me, I will never unfollow you. Are you kidding me? If we both follow each other, this is a contract to me. This is like,
The same. I'm the
right?
same.
You're like, we are but two artists
True, true, true,
floating in
true.
this like decrepit landscape, and we need each other. And sometimes that social currency, they might go like, oh, you know Mike, and whatever. Someone takes you slightly more seriously than they would if you didn't, and whatever. But however, my feelings get hurt so bad when a mutual unfollows me. I'm in a petty tizzy, petty
Okay,
tizzy.
wow. Mike, we're the same.
Who's
We're
getting
the
called
fucking
out right now?
same.
Who's getting called out right
It
now
is
that we're
funny
gonna
though.
have to edit
Okay.
Oh
out
my
later?
God, I could,
No, but it is funny
I
because
get
sometimes
pissed.
I don't know if you've ever like gone through this, but sometimes like someone like follows you, you follow them back, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
we're cool, we're cool,
Yes.
and then like you check like maybe 2 years later, and they unfollowed you, and
I'm
so then
like,
I'm like unfollow too,
no.
like
Yes, the
yeah.
unfollow too. That's
All
the
right, me
deepest,
too,
darkest part
bitch.
of that well is when you finally unfollow them back. It's so sad.
Sometimes you're like I don't even really like your work, so I like there's sometimes I'm like sometimes I'm like I hope they didn't follow me, and then they do, and then I'm like bitch.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what happened? You know what's so funny? Can I tell you a really, really funny moment where this happened?
Yeah.
I'll sort of, I won't name names, say, but there's this kind of, this sort of person who works with musicians, I guess was, you know what? Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Um, Basically, they're this kind of like mysterious entity in music who is like working on this big program, and we've been like fans of each other for a while. And on Instagram, he like unfollowed me, and I was like, "What the hell is this?
What the fuck? What the
Unfollow,
fuck, Benny Blanco?
unfollow
Okay.
me."
No, no, no. What the fuck, Benny Blanco? Oh shit! Oh no! No.
Shots fired. But like, yeah, and so really weirdly, he ended up hitting me up to do a gig later on, and he was like, "Come to my like studio, come to my space, whatever." And he's got all these resources, and so I'm like in the office, and there's like a bunch of people in there. He wants to show his coworkers his work, like my work, and we're all sitting in the boardroom, and then he is like, "Oh, let me just look up Mike really quick on Instagram," even though he had unfollowed me. And so he like finds my profile, and it was amazing. He was like justifying in real time like why he had to unfollow. He was like, you know, you gotta like clean up the timeline. You know, like people like follow zero people, which is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Is like,
Dude, every time I
let
see
me
someone
sev
follow zero people, I'm like, holy shit, that person is so fucking cool.
Okay,
No, no, no. That's
I
the
exactly.
coolest
heard.
person I've ever seen
I'm
in
like,
my
oh,
life.
you must not
They
know
don't like,
First of
anyone,
all,
huh?
no,
I
no,
will
no.
say, Sean, I beg to disagree. Beg to disagree. You follow zero people, you're a stuck up bitch. But
No,
then I
I'm
will say,
also just joking. No.
Yeah.
I
but
don't-
also I will say, I heard that somebody told me that, like, okay, this is like grapevine shit, but it's like apparently someone got like a manager, like social media manager, and the first thing that they did when they went through their account was to unfollow like a ton of people because apparently the way and I don't know, this is just like allegedly just stuff that I heard, that apparently the algorithms work better for you the less people you follow, which I'm like, it
Why
sucks.
would that even make
Oh
sense?
yeah.
Wouldn't you incentivize following more people?
This is
What
the
the?
great
Why?
Yes.
That doesn't even
algorithm.
make sense. No, but that's what the bots do. You gotta
Mm.
humanify yourself and follow two
You gotta
people.
botify
Mm.
yourself to become the human. The stupidest thing I've said yet.
I like that. I like that.
Listen, that's my favorite kind of humor. The dumber, the better.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like, I don't know, but also, it's petty. I get it. It touches the petty part of my heart, which I do like to interact with, but is also it's somewhat toxic because people are not unfollowing you for like entirely deliberate reasons, but I will make that shit all about myself.
I don't know. I agree. I feel like sometimes well, we listen, that's how we stay young at heart.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys carry a grudge, or do you guys live and let learn? Like you just like bygones be bygones. Like, oh, who are you? Whatever, dude. Like,
Ooh.
do you carry a grudge, or if someone does something weird to you 8 years ago in the industry,
Oh,
is there
dude.
a special segment, a special like pig pen of your brain where that you have reserved for the mud, and you just always have it splashed and like
Oh, Sean, you know.
Oh yeah. I want to release the grudge, but it's hard.
well,
Yeah,
some people really don't hold a
I
grudge.
keep the grudge. I don't want to, but it's there, you know.
Yeah.
I
What can you
feel like
say?
I feel like there's different. Okay, there's okay. Okay, well, we gotta make a tier list of grudges because they're not all grudges are created equal. Okay, some of them they're just like a fleeting grudge. You're like, you burned me, but then you let enough water go under the bridge and then it's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
then there's some grudges where you like got betrayed to like the
Yeah.
11th
But
level, and
you
then
know
that
what though?
person you're
You
like,
know what though? There's been people that have fired me unjustly, and then there's been people where like I was walking up and like we like worked together on the production, and there's I'm with a new person, and they're like, oh shit, like this is my friend so and so. You can meet each other, and then the person that I worked with is like, we're not friends, we're more like acquaintances, and they said that in front of the new person I introduced them to. Those two people, the person that fired me and that person, though there's no separation of how much I hold the grudge. Like I will like remember that until I
Oh
die.
my God, that's like a core memory. That
Yeah.
is you.
Just like
Yeah.
and it always feeds into this thing where like I am convinced that I make friends with people way faster than they make friends with me, and I'm always like
Mm,
I get really like I'm like, oh, like I immediately trust this person and like we're let's hang out all the time and whatever, and like they're like, I
yeah.
barely know this person.
Oh, yeah. That's man. But that's actually such a whack story that you just told. That's crazy that that happened. That's like some serious nightmare fuel. What the fuck?
I think about it.
Damn, that person's my enemy now. That's my enemy.
that's right.
I'm freaking
Okay.
ride or die right now. Let's go to his house.
I love that we got some like Sean lore. We got some Lord Spew lore right
Some
now. Just lore
Lord
drop.
Beauty.
Yeah, because I feel like okay, and this might be me romanticizing the East Coast versus the West Coast, but I feel like the like West Coast people can be like so crazy sometimes. Like I'm not surprised about the story you just told, Sean. Mike, how's it like being in like how's the social vibe in Boston? Do you feel like somebody could pull that
I
stuff
feel like people
on
are
you?
pretty direct in on the
Right?
East Coast, right?
Yeah, the East Coast versus West Coast, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that. I find that East Coast, especially in Boston, it's an academic area. There is no place quite like LA in terms of like how that socializing goes on. In Boston, you're definitely getting what you see is
Yeah.
what you get a lot of times. And I think
Mhm.
that that's not always kind, but it's often more authentic, I would say, somewhat. I can't generalize entire,
Yeah.
fully, but yeah.
I don't think that it's that way everywhere here, but I do think that there was a period of time where there were more people that were thinking about like what are my boundaries? Like I'm a strong person. Like I choose who's in my space. Like I don't hug people. Get away from me. You like that sort of thing. And I do remember there being a few years where I was coming across more people that like I'd go in for a hug and they'd be like, I don't hug. Or something
That's
like
Yeah.
things like
funny.
that I'm like, oh, okay, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, that feel as direct as some East Coast kind of experience. Because I mean, I feel like there's a lot of like here, there's a lot of like running into somebody and they're like, oh my god, we have to get lunch, and like they don't like
Yeah.
you and they don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Versus I don't that doesn't happen quite as much on at least where I'm from, Philly, and
Sure.
Dude, I feel
yeah.
like this is something that's so difficult. I mean, I had to learn this. I had to learn this being in California, but I feel like I had to learn Oh my God, it's like Mean Girl City sometimes.
I
But
get you.
once you know, you know. It's pretty funny. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It can be hard, I think, for me to like size up. I think making friends in LA is really hard.
How long have you been here?
I've been in LA for 6 years, and I feel like I'm starting to like plant roots more so now, probably because I went through the pandemic here and kind of like lost
Hmm.
some of my early stage years. But I feel like more so I'm like, yeah, starting to figure that out more. I had someone tell me, "Oh yeah, it takes 5 years to like make good friendships here," and I was like, "That's so crazy." And then to me that was somewhat my experience. But I think that also has to do more so with animation being so solitary. It's
Yeah.
rare to
Mm.
especially when if I'm not like a part of a studio, I'm not part of like a major production, I don't have a team I'm interfacing
Yeah.
with, and yeah, those connections are harder. And I wasn't working like service industry in the same way here that I was in Boston, so
So
that service industry will get you friends real fast.
so
um,
this is good to talk about. I feel like for,
Yeah.
for young people who want to move to a new place, even when you get a new job, one thing that I realized pretty quick is even though I was working with people and hanging out with them at work, what I realized is that doesn't necessarily make them weekend friends. Like,
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
they see
Mm-hmm.
me 5 days a week. Why would they want to go hang out with me on the weekends necessarily? And I realized that once I one I planned this birthday party. Yeah, I think I was
No.
here. I was here for 2 years, and I was working at a studio, and I invited all like as many people from the studio as I could. I was like, "This is sick. I'm gonna have like a party here. I'm gonna buy a bunch of beers. I'm gonna get. I don't even drink. I'm gonna buy beers for everybody." And I had two roommates, and they were like helping me get ready and stuff for my birthday party. And then zero people came
No way!
from everyone that I invited from work. And
That's
and, and that's and that's when I
crazy.
No.
realized that there are work friends and there are outside of work friends, and that's when I realized like, okay, I gotta like, I started going to shows and talking to people who are into music and just trying to find
Yeah.
people outside of what I did for work that could be my
Yes.
friends. Yeah,
Oh,
sad Lord's Spew story.
This is sad story. Okay, do we
these
have a
LA,
mic?
these LA motherfuckers, man. Yeah, that's crazy. I will say I love all of my non-art friends so much.
Yeah.
It's like, there is this weird social game that kind of goes on, and I feel like I'm yeah, sort of I'm really I think I'm in the throes of figuring this out right now because as I've been going to more events and connecting with people, I have yet to really see how far those social bonds would go.
Mm.
But yeah, I definitely this is the only place I've questioned these sorts of things. I feel like in other places I know where people are at, but here it can be a little tricky. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I I'm glad that we're kind of like bringing it up on the pod just because like what Sean you're saying like for people who are considering moving to LA and stuff like that. And it is definitely something it is something to expect and it is something that is a little bit surprising to moving to this place.
Making new friends is hard, man. It
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
especially when you're an adult, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially if you're talking to people that have grown up here and they're like, well, I already have my people that I hang out with I play D&D with every Friday or whatever it
Hmm.
is. But what did you do when you first moved out here? What did you do to kind of like escape from the isolation bubble?
Yeah, that was sort of hard. I guess like as I came out here, I sort of had made enough like internet mutuals in like kind of the music space where like I feel like just enough people had said like you should really be in LA. I'd introduce you to X and Y and whatever. And so yeah, I came out here for that kind of like a sort of almost like a music industry type job. I was going to be like on staff for this rapper as like his like animator basically, but it was not paying. The deal wasn't hashed out. I didn't know anything about it, and when I got out here, the deal was pretty bad. And I sort of, in moving out here, I'd like built up a saving. So I was like, all right, I'm going to spend like 6 months just animating and trying to figure out like how I can land a gig. I was like working on a project I was trying to develop, and I was like dedicated to figuring out how I could do that legitimately. But then after 6 months, I got a job in coffee again, but this time at like the billboard lawyers, like
Hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I was one of their baristas with one other person. And
No
it
way.
was my final service industry, yeah, job, at least yet. Perhaps, who knows? But yeah, I did that for about a year, and then the pandemic happened, and then I was kind of able to transition into animation full time, sort of through that pandemic, really weirdly, right? Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
That's good.
wow. That's so cool.
yeah,
Um, I want to start peppering in some questions because I feel like I don't we have like a lot of really great questions that and I
sure, yeah.
want to try to get through some of
We've been
them.
talking about that life shit.
I know, which was so fun. It's so
I do
This is a
love
fun.
very
that
I
life
down to
shit.
earth episode.
This
yeah.
crustacean is just fantastic. Oh my God.
Thanks.
Wow.
Our patron HX the Abrasive asks, was there ever a concern that dedicating so much to pixel art would make potential employers view you as not as worth hiring or as a less developed artist? Or was pixel art actually a significant draw for both employment and engagement?
That's such a good question. It is
Yeah.
both of those things, 100%. The niche is limiting. It is definitely, you're eligible for certain things, but I've definitely pitched ideas and they like the idea with everything but the pixel art. And for
Oh,
me, I think even now in my career, like I am not necessarily precious about pixel art. I use it. It's kind of just like how it fell into my lap and it's like the way that I can make things, but like increasingly so I'm trying to pair with artists to take ideas out so that we can maybe work on something else outside of the style, and I can kind of return to writing, voicing, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit of boarding too. I've like
Or
kind
you
of
go
learned
into
some of this stuff.
directing mode, and then
Directing mode,
you
yeah.
it can be a
Yeah,
different style to direct it.
mhm.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So wait, what was that question? And there was another good part of that. It was the first half was, yeah.
Yeah, well, was it also a significant draw for both employment and
Yes.
engagement?
Yes. It was a significant draw for employment and engagement because some people really very specifically wanted it. And
Mm.
because there wasn't a lot of it in existence, and honestly, like dudes like Paul Robertson, he's so incredibly good at what he does that I think like I become like a sort of default at that time for like people who wanted probably like a cheaper, more accessible, not more accessible because his shit is like literally so amazing, but just like oh let's like throw a mic at it and just yeah for knowledge or
Are you
whatever.
the low rent
Yeah, yeah,
Mike
exactly. I'm
Robertson?
like CVS brand Paul Robertson. And so, and I'll get it done. I'll get it done quick. I'll get it done scrappy. I'll get it done cheap. Like so they'll find me. They'll find me. But
That's
yeah, it
so
was it
funny.
was yeah, for sure good in that way. Yeah, some artists, and it is weirdly versatile. Pixel art, it is good for people who want that little video gamey feel. That's like the biggest thing. Like ad companies approaching you, like I make it look like a video game, and it's like that's actually such a light lift compared to what I regularly do. That
Yeah.
it's like sure, we'll make it look like a video game. That's the most standard thing you could ask of the
Mm.
medium. So yeah, it is both. It is both. That is the weakness of the niche is yeah, but we'll see.
No, that's really interesting, and I think that's a great answer too. Like, like it's this thing where it's like it's so specific that yeah, and I
Uh,
think you touched on it earlier in the episode as well. It's like it's
Yeah.
both like a weakness and a
yeah.
strength
What's
sometimes. Yeah, yeah,
crazy
yeah.
too with that stuff too is no matter what you pick, whatever you get known for, you're gonna have to work against right away to prove if you can do something else, and then you're gonna have to work against that to prove you can do something else. So I would say to be less precious about your planning your point of entry and to just kind of get in there. But like how many actors are like great comedians and they have trouble getting like a dramatic role, and now that's their new goal, and then
Yes.
yeah, you're always going to be fighting to kind of reinvent yourself. So yeah, don't count yourself out of something. If you see like an angle in, like take that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's what
that's
I would
great.
say.
Great advice.
Hmm.
There's this really funny question from our YouTube listener, Hudson B, PDUD. What, in your opinion, is the best show of all time?
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It's such a funny question. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Of all time, best show.
yeah, for one, I could never answer such a thing. It will move around. I don't believe in like my metric for good and bad is, was it extremely fun for me to watch? Then that is all I care about. Um, I just want fun. Bad things can be fun. The best show of all time
For you right now. Like it can
for
change maybe
me,
like 3 years from now, but like
For
right
you
now.
right now.
for me right now, I mean, I'm rewatching Evangelion right now, so that's kind of like where I'm at. I'm like, this is the shit. This is super cool. I'm kind of back on my anime bag. I would probably say like Cowboy Bebop is my most held favorite. Um,
Mhm.
it's something I return to.
You know what?
That's
I
my
feel
best.
like I want to say that. Like that's the answer I would give if other people were listening, and they'd be like, "Oh
Mm.
yeah, 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 amazing animation, classic. It's so beautiful." Like, but realistically, is
Ooh.
that my favorite? like I think it's
Oh,
awesome. It's so cool.
let me give you my favorite show that is just my favorite show.
Ooh.
It's not really my favorite show, but it was a very formative show for me. So there's this canceled cop TV show called Fastlane that Fox made. That this was made by McG, who would make the OC and make Supernatural, and he had this shitty cop show that I saw when I was in eighth grade, and I had never seen a cop show. I'd never really seen a buddy comedy. These tropes were completely brand new to me, and it completely blew my mind. And it's like y'all see like I Saw the TV Glow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It is like it holds that spot in my memory as this like completely this thing I was totally obsessed with. It was really fun. They aired it on G4 TV, and when they launched it, they put it out as if it were brand new, but it had already been canceled a year prior. So when it got to the last episode, it got canceled. I was like completely devastated and heartbroken. And what's really funny about that show, and ties into my first answer, is that the show is roughly about these two cops who they have, they're like 51% cop, 49% criminal, and that they have to jump in with they bust these high-end criminals, and they use all of their rich guy shit to go bust other high-end criminals. And so they're these they operate in this space that is called the candy store, where they keep all the cool stuff. And it's very much the same as the ship in Cowboy Bebop. It's kind of this like
Okay.
central hub world where all the characters meet up. They need each other, like in Cowboy Bebop. They don't necessarily always like each other, and they're actually structured exactly the same, including having a two-parter break to the season midpoint and a two-parter at the very end. And so the other
Mm.
when I was in Echo Park or whatever, I was walking around, I was like, these shows are actually structurally very similar. That's crazy that I would like both of them. And they feature very similar character relationships, except the first one I watched, Fastlane, it does not hold up well at all. But I will watch it periodically for the nostalgia, and it just always hits for me.
Hell yeah, that's
Nice.
the kind of answer that I'm looking for. Because
Yeah.
of course, there's the like, you're on an animation podcast. What's the most cultured
Thank you for
answer that you
digging
can
and
give
clocking
for
me on
best?
that, because I would have
Yeah.
not. I would have not. I was good. You
We're
know,
okay. I mean, we're all okay with giving our showy answer, of course, of
yes.
course.
That's so
I'm like, oh
funny.
yes, Tekken King Creed. Oh yeah, Mind Game.
I'm
Yes,
telling you,
like
Ah,
go look up.
like
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Ooh, Redline has some of my favorite animation, and did you know it took them 7 years to make? You know, like a...
You know, I actually bought a shirt at a convention that says with a girl that's like, putting her hair behind her ear going like the manga was better than the anime, and that's literally me. That's why I bought the shirt. I'm always like, Tekken Kinkreet, have you read the manga? So
Oh
funny.
shit!
Oh,
We've got another
great.
question here.
Yeah. Well, I think we went over this question from at RoToozer on YouTube, which was any pixel game media that inspire you the most.
I can give like a couple other shout outs. Some people are like, it's like crazy how accurate people are. They're like, Death Road to Canada is like a great,
Oh, it's
yeah,
so good.
it's
Oh, it's so
so
good.
fun. I have
So fun.
like a pretty good relationship with the guy who made that game just from like
No way.
I had to like message him and just be like, not only is this like tremendously fun, but the sense of humor, the whimsy, um, it's just so special. Like that guy's sense of humor that he puts into his games is so special. It just makes it so memorable.
I
Yeah.
wonder what it's like to have your whimsy complimented.
Oh, it's like that's like the best. That's like whimsy is like what I'm looking for. My
Damn, I
God.
gotta add more whimsy into my shit. I feel like
It's
I've been lacking whimsy recently.
I'll say like a non-pixel art game that also fills me with whimsy is have any of you ever played the game Earth Defense Force 5 or 6?
I
No.
haven't. No.
You gotta, if you just go on IGN, look up Earth Defense Force 4 review, watch the first 15 seconds of it, and that is like, it is literally just a B sci-fi movie, like kind of like Starship Troopers, where they are like killing massive bugs. But it's just like, it's like someone got a boardroom of like 12-year-olds together and they were like, let's make the fucking greatest game ever. And then they did it. And it's that game. It's so fun. It's like the best couch co-op game ever.
That's
It's
awesome.
yeah, yeah, you're just like flying around in a jetpack with like anime guns shooting like hundreds upon hundreds of bugs and aliens, and the frame rate goes to like 6 frames per second 'cause there's too many units on
It's
screen.
just lagging
And
out, yeah.
it's totally, it's like pure whim. That's like the most whimsical. I'm like,
Heck
this
hell
is,
yeah.
yeah, I want everything in my life to feel like this.
Oh my God. Have you played Vampire Survivors?
Yes, I love that game.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
play that
so
game in between
fun.
meetings. Like if I have like a meeting busy day, but like I have like
oh,
half an hour in between meetings, it's the perfect like, oh, I'll just play like
Yeah.
10 minutes of this or whatever.
that's so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I'm also big on phone games. If you've ever played Slice and Dice, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Slice and Dice. Oh my God. I
Oh,
got so hooked on it. It was crazy. And I was like, I can never look at this game again because I would
yeah,
spend hours on it. It's so good. It's really good.
yeah,
I wanted to play all green characters because I was just insane.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe you know this too. Wait, this is so crazy. This has like been my latest obsession. I am like completely that and like Fortnite. I've been playing a ton of Fortnite lately. Yeah.
I Okay, I'm not gonna bore everybody to death who's listening to this, but there is a very specific character that you can get in Slice and Dice, which is a statue, which has really fucking amazing stats, except that it has no attacks. So I would always play. Oh, you know it. So I would grab all of the little like items to put on the
Yes.
statue, so she would be like super strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
That game is
Yes.
so crazy. There were these. I shouted out Slice and Dice. I'm sorry, we should probably change the topics on this soon. But I
Yeah.
shouted out Slice and Dice on my story,
Sponsored
and
by Slice and Dice.
Oh, please, I
I,
would love
I
it.
wish.
these guys do a whole podcast on Slice and Dice, and they were like, "You should like listen to it," and I listened to it, and they were like broke down why the game is so brilliant, and I was like, "Wait, this game is like genius level shit. I can't believe how like well everything is balanced together." And one of the things that I really love about it, and then I'll stop talking about it, is that it's like a roguelite.
Yeah.
And so as you're moving up and getting more powerful items, as you get more things to soup out your characters more, the power doesn't necessarily mean good in the game. You will just as soon be killed by your own super powerful item because you misused it in a certain instance. And that to me, I was just like, oh, chef's kiss. This is great. I'm getting more powerful, but I'm getting more dangerous to myself at the same time. And it makes it really fun.
Damn. It's like your Frodo with the ring.
Yes, yes. Too
Wow.
much power. You're drunk off the power.
Talk of the power. We have two questions that are extremely similar. One from @Degay88 on Twitter and one from Wirefauna on Instagram. They both ask, how did you learn pixel art? If you had to learn it again, how would you start? How did you get over your beginner's hurdle?
I learned, yeah, pixel art through, yeah, just basically I was on Twitter, which is kind of like the ultimate space for pixel artists. And
Mm.
I just started following who other pixel artists were following, and I sort of started to build like a sort of like a taste profile of like different people, and then I would kind of like take their still images and just study. For animation, it was really, really trial and error. And if I were to start again, I guess I would just, I'm so bad at it, but I would just follow some more tutorials. I routinely feel like I get significantly better when I go back to the basics of anything and just like watch somebody do it over again. Just as like a self-taught person, I will often find that I'm missing gaps that other people have filled in with a better workflow. And it's like, I've been doing it this way for 3 months, but like 5 minutes on a YouTube video might save me countless hours in the future. So yeah, nothing too specific. If you're specifically looking at pixel art, there's a great YouTuber, Brandon James Greer, who does these really fun pixel art videos that are really excellent. If it's pixel art you want to get specifically good at. Yeah, and with the animation, I stand by my prior statement, I suppose, for that.
Yeah.
My first interaction with pixel art was I had to do a pixel art duel on I used to do a podcast before this. It was a live one on Twitch called Dueling Drawing Requests,
Ooh.
and I would have different artists on, and I would have to battle them in their style. And
Whoa.
I had there was a pixel artist on named Nick Waz, who is one of the developers and main artists from Shovel Knight and Mina the Borrower and a bunch of other games. And he's so good, and he teaches teaches pixel art. And so I had a pixel artist come on my stream and like run me through a boot camp beforehand, and then
Sure.
I had to I battled him on the day in 5 rounds. I mean, of course he won, but like
Sure, yeah.
I like got run through a gauntlet to try to train for a pixel art battle as my first
Yeah.
time.
I am like for myself and Pixar, I'm like routinely in awe of like my contemporaries. For myself, I would say I don't find myself being like the best at pixel art or even the best at animation, but I think like my voice and writing sort of comes through the strongest. But yeah, I think like the best way to learn is to just like continue to be like nicely critical of yourself and like find the people you admire and like study, like copy, like do whatever you have to do to like gain an understanding of the skill set you want, and then you can always deviate
Yeah.
later. But I think it helps to sort of figure out how the sausage is made to learn quicker, I would say.
Mm.
Now this isn't a listener question, but we had talked very briefly, and you implied that there was a reason why there aren't very many pictures of you online. And I
Yes.
was wondering what that might be, and if any drawings that I do of you, are we gonna have to censor them?
No, no. Keep them. I want my face. Okay, so there are photos of me online, but and we should all talk about this because it's fun. If you Google my name, you will find that there is me, and then you will find that there is this 70-year-old evangelical singer, and he is like pretty SEO savvy, so we have been like battling for years.
Oh my
That's
god!
so funny.
Fucking
Yeah, and
same,
You're both
same. I'm
like
in a battle too.
it's
you're
like
praying to
impossible.
Google.
Yeah,
Other
and he
Sean
kind of
Glaze
wins. He
is my
he's usually like if
nemesis.
you like I swear to God, I'm gonna Google my name right now. I bet you his face. Oh wow, let's see. If it shows up. Yeah, he shows up first in the pictures. He is this like very seemingly like sweet man who like he has comedy albums out on iTunes where he's like singing like these like church friendly ballads.
Oh my god.
He has tons of videos on YouTube. He has a song that we thought was so funny in college called "My Brother's a Big Old Nerd," that we would like quote to each other.
Dude,
And so he's that's probably why, because he comes up first usually.
that's so funny.
Um,
Oh shit.
yeah, though I'm kind of
Dude,
I'm slowly winning the battle actually as I'm
that's
checking
good.
out my
That's
own
good.
shit.
That's good.
That
Listen,
is
that's because
so
that's because
funny.
he's older and he's dying, and you're living, and your videos will eclipse his and bury his. No,
Oh my god.
I am constantly up against other Sean Glaze, who is a team building consultant and expert who writes books and does videos, and I sort of want to make a like how to break up a team book or something like that, like how to sabotage
Yes.
a team until it like I want to be the anti Sean Glaze to counter him, because I don't think I'm sure that I have come up on his radar because people are like, Sean
Yes.
Glaze, why do all these dick drawings come up when I look at your name? Like, and so he's like putting thousands of dollars into being the
Exactly.
first on Google search, you know?
Wow.
I feel like I'm like a replicant in Blade Runner or something when I'm dealing with this guy. I'm like, I want to prove to you that I'm a human, like I'm real. And
I love that both of your nemesis are like very similar. I just googled both of them. They both look like a very similar kind of guy,
I'm
except
sure they're
one is
lovely.
bald.
I'm sure they're
they look
They look
so
kind.
really
lovely.
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
They look very
And
nice.
and I
Yeah.
will
I think
outlive
I got drunk one
mine.
time and I emailed my guy like a link of I wrote to him like I'm coming for the number one Google spot, and then I sent him a link to the Ludacris music video number one spot, and he never responded. I'm sure he's never seen anything like that before. But
That's so funny. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah.
I
He
gotta.
probably had to go to the confessional right after opening the email.
He saw that Ludacris video, and yeah, he had a lot to
Yeah,
forgive.
yeah.
To unpack.
I still have to kind of like shoot a shot across his bow. You know what I mean? Like I have
Yeah,
been preparing to declare war, and I've been trying to come up with the game plan to sort of
yeah. You got to
eclipse
bring him
him.
in.
Bring
You
him
gotta
in,
bring him
You gotta bring
in.
him in. I
No.
dude.
wish I could heal my bridge, but I already told him. I already made a threat to him years ago. So, perhaps
I gotta.
I'll mend my bridge if you mend your bridge. If you start your.
No, I'm not going to mend my bridge. No, you know what would be interesting is when I get a team of like when I like get a show or whatever I do, and I have a team, I got to have him come in and consult, and
Yeah,
then we're gonna
yeah.
get onto the call, and my email doesn't have my name in it, and we're gonna get onto the call, and it's gonna say the same name under our Zoom ID, and then
I love this fantasy.
now,
Recognize
and
me, brother.
I'm going to say you've fallen into my trap. In this call are 20 Sean Glazes of varying orders on Google.
Like, so
We're battling
funny.
for Sean Glaze supremacy.
Is the name familiar to you, boy?
You'll never forget my name. My goal is to make him go, I have his name. You know what I
You-
mean?
This is a little scary. This sounds like you want to take over his life. I think we should move
Yeah.
on.
That's such a crazy.
No.
That's such a crazy end game. You need to say it.
No, dude, I'm gonna make a book. I'm gonna make a book that shows you how to split up teams and be the anti Sean Glaze. Anyway, we're gonna move on.
We're gonna
It's
move
good to
on.
know that you have a similar battle with an old man that I do.
No, you guys, you guys are the same. You're the same person. Okay, back to the show. Creative block. Mike, do you experience creative block? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I do experience creative. I'm kind of in a creative block right now. I feel like I'm like working on a couple shorts that I just am not fully stringing together, like the humor on, and yeah, working through that. I would say that usually there's so many tasks involved in animation that I can usually run off and go do something else. I would say doing something that is, there's like the hard work of animation that is kind of like the unglamorous grinding part, and then there's like the creative part. And usually, if the creative part isn't working, I go to the grinding part for a while, and then we'll bounce back. But usually, like my process is to always do like a little bit of writing in the beginning of the day, just like noodle some like ideas for things that I think are funny, and then make sure I look at them every day because sometimes they'll spark a new thing that will help solve another thing. Yeah, for a creative block, I just like it sounds weird, but I'll just like immediately like I'll face off against it for like maybe 30 or 40 minutes and then I will go like give up in the moment and then go work on something else that I know needs my attention, return, try again for another 30, 40. And yeah, I mean really like also just like switching your shit up is a really good way. Like however you're like used to doing your stuff, whether it's like the time of day you're doing it or whatever, like the location you're doing it in. Usually, if I'm kind of stuck, I'm also stuck in other parts of my life as well. So I feel like I need to, add some variety somewhere else to help shake some new thoughts in,
Yeah, that's a
I
great
guess.
answer.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that you write every morning. I think that's really cool. We had just a single other guest who does that every morning, Stu Livingston.
Hmm.
Episode 192. It's also a great interview. Stu is a very, I don't know, that sounds like a very kind of focused approach to the craft, what you
Yeah.
just
Also,
said.
I can say this is like another thing I've done to get myself out of the hole, and which I'm probably going to be doing now for this specific problem where like the humor isn't coming together. Because it's just because I do my own voice acting and stuff as well. I will just go into my iPhone memos and I will just record absolute nonsense, riffing on the idea, just like crazy shit that I just feel like saying until I like make myself laugh or yeah, get some kind of line. Sometimes that helps shake it loose too. Sort of another thing is just to sort of get out of that space where you're trying to hammer it super hard and like return to like an idea space and like a play space, I guess, within your brain. That can sometimes help. But I don't know, man. Shit's hard. Yeah, I definitely get around it by just bouncing around to different stuff a lot of the time. But yeah.
Mm. How many ideas do you feel like you're usually kind of playing around with at the same time? Since you said that you're kind of like bouncing around between kind of like different stuff.
Yeah, I think like usually like a maybe like an executive will sometimes put me on like a quest of some sort, they might be like, we're buying ideas like this, and then I'll be like, maybe I'll write something like that, and then it'll become like I'll do like one pagers for ideas so that I'm not like too like bought into developing something. And then eventually I just kind of keep like these rotations of one pagers. And then as I like hear about things, I'll like develop them a little bit more. And a lot of things that like executives have, like loosely task you on, maybe based on what they're buying, what they're not buying, or whatever conversations you have. They turn into ideas that I really love. A lot of, it's like creativity needs some sort of limits and constraints to produce something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have like a pretty good. I was actually like I'm like chatting with somebody next week about they kind of want to see like the vault of ideas or whatever, and I have like probably like six things that are in like various stages of just like me noodling around with them, and
Ooh.
I think it's good to just like put shit down too. Like that sounds like maybe a lot, but some of the ideas are old. I don't look at them for 2 years, and then I'll unearth them, which is another good way to get out of creative block too, is to kind
Yeah.
of unearth some old shit and yeah, tinker around in it, and then you might have some fresh eyes on it, or might yeah retroactively help you break through a different part of the current thing you're working on.
So you have all these ideas. How do you approach writing? We had a guest recently who approaches writing through a log line first. Is that how you proceed? What's your kind of process to getting to an idea?
I think like I'm guessing like my ideas probably kind of come like how most people's do. You might have like a hook or some kind of little thought that you build off of. So there's like I guess a difference in like writing scripts. I guess for a while I was doing just kind of page one to whatever, and then I'm working on a pilot now that I'm paired with a writer for. And so I've gone through like a sort of traditional writing process with her where we outline and we
Mhm.
go through all these different stages. And so that it's really cool to see how that like more traditional style works, like a three act structure.
Mhm.
But for like development writing, which I feel like I end up doing like a lot of, is I usually will I do these one pagers that I love where I try to fit everything onto one page, which is like two paragraphs about the idea, and then maybe a paragraph for each character, and then some episode descriptions. And I really find that if I strictly try to keep things to one page, it helps me to learn more about my idea by trying to keep it concise. And further, I guess like after that, what I'll do is I'll send these one pagers around to, people who I'm in touch with, and maybe an executive will bite on it and say, "Oh, I kind of like this idea," and then I'll maybe develop it out more.
Yeah.
I've made like a couple Bibles and things like that, sort of in this way as
You're
well.
also saving how far you go into an idea, A, for free, and B, before they're like,
Yeah.
oh, this idea is cool, but what if the main character was a girl? Or whatever they're going to suggest. Like,
Yes.
sometimes early on, they have a big thing that they're like, this is awesome, but we're not looking for like two friends. We're looking for like, it's like one person and they're on a quest or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah, I will say
but that,
lately in development, I've gotten this great thing. They're telling me about that it is good to show people somewhat undeveloped things because executives want to be able to see how they would interact with it. Like, they want to
Mhm.
riff with you a little bit on things, and that
yeah.
Mhm.
there's somewhat of a balance between, a really completed idea and an idea that, they want to be like, oh, what if we do this too? And they want to feel like they have the space to jump in on things.
Yeah.
And like you said, for time, I have like tirelessly worked on other ideas where I'm like trying to make my own pilot like brutally, so I can show it. And sometimes that is, a great route to go. And it is good to, of course, produce your own things for your own portfolio. But in other times, yeah, it's great to have that one pager because it's a light ask for people to read. And yeah, it allows other people to use their imaginations on your ideas more. So they don't feel like you're
Yeah.
already in their brain trying to control exactly what they're seeing.
Yeah. I am still very impressed though that in one page you can fit the idea, the characters, and some episode ideas.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of a rough idea how many like sentences you spend on each? Because a page is very not much. So
Yeah.
do you put your font in like six?
Oh my gosh, I
Or
would
do
love
you
to just like link one of these. I should just like link one that I have or something, if people want to see it. What I do is I do it,
Yeah.
what is it called when it's not vertical, like landscape?
Or yeah, landscape.
I do a
Mm-hmm.
landscape and then I chop it in half so I have like I can really fill that page. And yeah, I just use like, size 10 or whatever. I would say the episode descriptions are just really but log lines. They are
Yeah. Yeah.
really really simple, just so because I feel like when they're looking at an idea, at least from how I, from where I'm standing or whatever, they your first two paragraphs are to like hook them into the idea to be interested in it. And then of course like everyone cares about the characters, and so like as
Mm-hmm.
I'm, the characters, it's like maximized on how they're interacting with each other. And then the
Yeah.
episode descriptions are last because if they've done all this other reading, then the episodes will kind of be like, oh, these are like the juicy situations they get into.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
Mm.
would want to see those characters in that context. And yeah, I would be happy to like, I don't know if there's ever links in episodes or things like that, but I could probably
Yeah.
provide
Oh,
one of
that would be
these,
awesome.
yeah, for like an
Yeah.
idea that I did, like whatever sell and
Yeah, I mean, if you have one, it's or a screenshot, I mean, you can straight up copy and paste into the Magma if you wanted to. But I'm sure that people would love to see that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. For Bodyhead, I pitched a one pager that I pitch in the same way that you do. Most of my pitches to start off, I'll go in with like three one pagers and
yeah,
make to like
Mm.
a general meeting or whatever, so that I always have like a backup idea if they're not into one of them or two of them. There's more of a chance of that that the meeting will have something that can go into a further meeting down the line.
yeah. Yeah. I always think like when I talk to execs, a lot of times I hear that like, it sounds crazy to say, but like reading is like a lot, and that they have a ton to read. So I just think it's like, what's the
Yeah.
lightest ask I can have for them?
Yep. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
You
yeah.
know, it's really funny. It's actually really funny that you mentioned that because there was somebody on the podcast who like came up with we actually did a little battle of ideas, and I don't know, I forget what we did. It was like we gave each other like 15 minutes and we had to come up with three dumb log lines with a little picture. And she came up with something so funny and she shared it on Twitter. And one exec still remembered that thing, that dumb little idea that she came up with in under 15 minutes because it's just a log line. I think I can say it because she shared it on Twitter. It's called Divorce Balloon. And it's like a child stuck in between his parents who were like having a divorce in a hot air balloon, and the lawyer is a bird. The divorce
Oh my
lawyer.
god. Jesus.
This is
And
the great mystery of pitching, isn't it? It is truly the eternal, like, everyone does it different. Anyone who claims to tell you they know how to do it is definitely not fully like, it's very person to person, like what people glob
yeah.
onto, what they remember. Yeah, it is really, that's wild.
It's
Yeah.
so funny. But yeah, the least amount, biggest bang for your
Yeah.
buck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that your style of pitching is the closest to the way that I pitch out of most people that I've met. Yeah, I like it. I like it, but also
Yeah.
I think that sometimes I second guess it because when you make one pagers, sometimes it can feel like am I fully investing myself into the idea in a way that you know how sometimes someone will work on an idea for like 5 years and like
Mm,
there's like this inexplicable spark in the idea where it feels alive and they care about it so much. Like, can they
hmm.
tell by this one pager that I came up with it this week and I could kind of care less if they don't like it? like I mean, of course I want them to like it, but it's one of
Yeah.
those like if they say they hate it, I'm like, I did that last week, that's okay. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
They can't, yeah, I guess so for, I guess the shit that I'm like working on now, it kind of it is like stemming out of like a project that was sort of like that dreamy kind of like wistful, I'm gonna sink like years and years into it. And that was just, sort of a result of not really knowing how to talk to people and just like building as much as I possibly could for the idea. I
Mhm.
think it can be communicated. I think that it's interesting like when I hear like executives, I had like some meetings where people were telling me what they bought and why they bought it and like what the
Oh.
reasoning. And some of
Mm.
the things, you're like seeing an executive talk about this thing they love. They're like, "Isn't that great?" And then I'm here in my head, I'm like, "I might have not bought that, but you're psyched about it." So someone figured that out for you, which is, really
Mhm.
interesting.
What's something that they have said that they like a thing, like a reason why they really liked something?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to like make sure I'm not
No. I
saying
don't. Yeah,
anything to reveal.
I don't want you to reveal anything. But like,
I
yeah,
think
if
I
you
think
have a
Sean is
way to.
asking kind of like, oh, it made me think of my son, or like, or like, oh, I've always loved punk music, so this idea, like, I don't know if there's
Yeah,
anything.
it's been stuff like that. I guess yeah, things where like someone, I'll get like a log line sort of shared with me on something that's bought and I'm like, "Really? That was a log line?" I'm just like surprised that like you saw a whole world within that necessarily, and it's not even like animation specific as well.
What I will say is I've had instances where I had executives steer me into a certain direction. For instance, like they'll say like it doesn't feel adult enough, and I'm like, what do you like they're cursing, there's blood everywhere, do you want them to like go to work? And they're like, yes, they should go to
Yes.
work. And then I had a scene in it where I had a scene in the original Fisthead pilot with Adult Swim where they
Yeah.
go to his brother's office job, and it's and you like follow him at work, and I'm like, is this really? Do people want to watch people at work? Like, is that fun? But I don't like it. It feels adult now. They have a job. I don't know. It is
Yeah.
a strange
I do think
thing. Yeah.
making things adult is so tricky because I feel like the line between teen and adult is so
Hmm.
like small, but I feel like maybe I don't know. I always think of like I could see how the jobs definitely feels quote unquote adult.
If
But
you're
yeah, I
good
don't know.
at writing workplace stuff, then that totally makes. For
Yeah.
instance, Beantown, they're at a job,
Yeah.
and so I
Yeah.
mean, and that works, and that's funny, and because of that, you're like, okay, I kind of like understand the age of these people. At the very least, they're having a job age, and that
Yeah.
and they're in situations where they have responsibility or their job is on the line, and I and I get that kind of thing. But
I
it
do
is
I do think though
interesting. Yeah.
that's it seems kind of crazy too, like to me, like with making things more adult. I guess I just think like, are we just really not going to act like South Park wasn't watched by like tons of children? Like South Park was absorbed. South Park was like a
Yeah.
super cool show because you were watching it when you weren't supposed to, and like
Right.
these audiences are always reaching to children. Like no matter what, I would say like cool animation reaches kids, and it's kids who are not supposed to be watching it a lot of times who are going
I
to
do think
remember it the strongest.
South Park is so smart in season like in the later seasons I mean later I mean I guess like around season 4 because it's like okay the main characters are the kids but they start to grapple with like current time events whereas
Hmm.
like season 1 to 3 it's just kind of like very crude raunchy anime like situations at school but I think it really starts like popping off and shining when it's like tackling current time.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Because there's still kids at school. But yeah, definitely that was the thing. That was the big thing. I remember being in 6th grade and everyone had been like, oh, I watched the South Park movie. That was such a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of the forbidden fruit of some sort that is,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's even stuff like I don't know, like it's like Rick and Morty, like the kids are eating this shit up because it's science fiction, it's weird and it's zany and they're like doing shit and there's some adult
And
who's
there's a
not acting really
kid.
like an adult and there's a kid, yeah, who's being a kid
Yeah.
and they can
Yeah.
identify with perhaps on some level or.
Yeah. There's an interest. There was also we were talking about companies that are kind of like looking for a thing. Like sometimes you go into a general meeting and they tell you what they're looking for. For a while, there were certain studios that were like, we just want two best friends,
Hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
and every single show they were trying to make was blank and blank, blank and
Mm-hmm.
blank.
Mm.
Like apple and onion, pickle and peanut. Like it was all like,
Mm-hmm.
we want two best friends. We are desperate to get two best friends, and that's the only thing we want pitches for.
I wonder, was
It's
this in like the
it's
wake
so
of the
interesting.
regular show or something? I feel like there's always something that makes everybody do this. You
I
Yeah,
know?
think it's also just
yeah,
like they're like running a bunch of like tests and stuff, and they're like
Yeah.
SpongeBob, he has his best friend Patrick,
Oh,
or like Adventure Time, he's got his best friend Jake, and then
so
they're like kind of
true.
like
right.
that I think they kind of like go
Yep.
through all of the like hit shows, and they're like, well, that's the
Yeah.
formula. That's how we break the formula, the
Oh,
algorithm to win the big prize at the casino.
Yes,
Um,
specifically Nickelodeon was saying that when I went into meetings with
mm.
them. Oh, but this was like years ago. I don't know what they want now. I don't know if they
Yeah, it
want
changes all the
whatever, but
time. Because they did ask, when was it? 2 years ago, I tried to pitch them a thing, and they were looking for workplace comedies,
hmm.
for kids. So,
workplace for
The,
kids.
the children will be
mhm.
going back to work. Yes.
Listen, we in okay, so the thing that I'm pitching is that we've gotten rid of child labor laws, and this is a show that takes place in the mines, and it's kids in the mine. It's called
Kids in
Miners.
the mines. It's
it,
called Minecraft.
it's
This
called
is this is
Miners Craft.
Miners Craft.
This is gonna reach into the presidency. It's gonna be like child labor laws. That shit's going away. Believe me, the
Oh, we'll
kids
make it
yearn for
sound
the
cute.
mines. I love that.
We'll have them say child labeler. We'll have them say it wrong. Like it'll. There'll be one kid who's always coughing and like big puffs of smoke and it'll be like a cute thing and he'll do like tricks with the smoke and it's kind of like he's vaping, but you don't see him vape. It's just coal and.
It's just cool. No, but okay, Sean, this is like we're too far back in the past. You know what's happening now? It's Roblox. The kids are
True.
being paid Robux to code. And I'm not even making this shit up. So that's the new labor, is like 12-year-olds coding FNAF or whatever. No, not FNAF, but it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's interesting to pay attention to it, I guess. But instead of like the breathing in the dust of the coal, they're breathing in the I don't know, the internet.
Instead of going door to door and trying to mow lawns, they're like grinding for someone on WoW for money.
Yeah, they're grinding WoW gold.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. But it's fun. It's fun, kids. It's fun. You love this, right?
You love work, right?
It is funny because in all these situations, it's basically like we're signing on to a video game to do chores, which I think is very funny.
So dark.
Well, let's find something more positive to wrap up this podcast with.
Oh, okay. Not unlike children who lost their lives early through unfair labor practices in the mines. This podcast may be drawing to a close like little Timmy and the black cough. Oh no, I'm just kidding. We could come up with a different transition.
I was hoping we could jump on a different subject, but we could jump right onto the end.
No, we don't. No, we don't have to. We don't have to. I'm just joking.
Listen, everybody, I hope this doesn't bum you out too much. Comments of this episode if you thought that was a huge bummer.
What do you think of the
comment
black
if you really liked it.
If you really...
Comment if you really liked it. Comment if that sounds like a fun pitch that you'd pick up. Comment episode ideas for Miner's Craft.
Miner's Craft. Okay, that's the end. That's the end of this creative block. Mike, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so fun chatting with y'all, and thanks for letting me draw Hey Arnold like 3 times probably. Also, these other drawings are amazing. That's all I have to say about that.
Do you have anything you want to plug?
Oh my god, these are our mics are wrestling. Do I have anything I want to plug? Yes, watch Beantown. It's something I made. I'm proud of it, and it is close to my heart, and that is my pitch. Thank you.
Beantown is good, and also our listeners are good. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Ibuka for creating the short clips we've been putting online.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. Another great way you can support us is by liking, sharing, commenting, following, all that good stuff. Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Mike on all his socials and to check out our Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I've been a little boy in the mines. Keep being creative and keep grinding. I'll see you next week.
You're canceled.
Canceled.